we're here to bestow upon you the 10 commandments of Commander, the Commanderments, if you will.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, BZ, joined by Amber. And that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds, because we bring you videos every single day, and they're always about Commander, and sometimes they're shorts. So if you want to support all that stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that we get for free, you can go to Patreon and give us your dollars to make the show better.
Yes, you can be like Nobu, and support this channel. Thank you for your support, Nobu. We love you all as much as we can without making you uncomfortable. Obviously, we would never make you uncomfortable. Another way to support this channel indirectly would be to use our TCG Player affiliate link in the description below. Start with the link, go to the site, buy the cards you were going to buy anyway at the exact same prices, and guess what, BZ?
What?
They support the nerds.
Whoa.
Yes. Moxfield.com is the sponsor of this channel. Seriously, best deck building website. There is an ad for it somewhere in the video. Guess it right now with a time code in the description.
You will fail.
You will fail. If you are right, you cheated.
You will not be right. You
And
will lose.
Happy birthday to everyone whose birthday is today.
And to their pets, because someone was mad that we forgot. So retroactive birthday to your pet specifically, and every pet going forward.
Yes, exactly. And if you want a secret, if it's your birthday on a Tuesday when we don't make a video, watch the video for Monday. We will wish you a happy birthday.
Secret life hack.
Yes, life hack for the Nitpicking Nerd. Let's get into this. 10 commandments. These are our 10 commandments of Commander, specifically the Nitpicking Nerds.
They're not ours.
I just said they were ours.
No, we have the tablets. We just have the message.
Yeah, exactly. So we have the tablets given to us by...
We actually smashed the first tablets on accident. We have the backups.
Because we were angry, yes.
Yeah.
And now these are the new tablets that are brand new, and they're the 10 rules of Commander according to the Nitpicking Nerds and...
These tablets.
And the tablets,
Which
yes.
we picked up, again, separately. We're just reading them, and we happen to agree with everything they say. This is like the bedrock for like Commander philosophy, or like how to have the best time in Commander, I think.
Yeah, exactly. This is the 10 rules I would tell you. The 10 things I would say if you wanted to be a Commander player, learn Commander, and just play Commander and have a good time.
Right. The consequence for breaking them is having a bad time, but not forever.
The first commandment of Commander is understand Rule 0. And there is a lot to Rule 0. It is simple in that Rule 0 really says anything that all players agree with at the table is the rule for the game. That's the basic of Rule 0. But there's a lot more to it. It also is the bedrock of this is a game of social interaction. Rule 0 really points it out and makes it so the game isn't just about winning. It's about having fun.
Yeah, the built-in philosophy of the Commander format is that everyone's here to have fun. Mainly, like, fun is the main consideration with bannings and rule sets and legality and all that sort of stuff. So we're basing it all around this, and then that obviously means, well, if the goal is to have fun, let's make sure everybody's having fun. So players having fun prioritized over winning.
Way over winning. In fact, the only time that's not really prioritized over winning is in CEDH, but even then, players are having fun because the Rule 0 talk has had.
They find that fun.
In a different way, so it is always about fun over winning.
Yeah, so while we're in the pregame discussion here, we can make sure that all our decks are on the same level. That's why we say power level. Some people use the 1 through 10 scale. Some people say, what I've been saying lately is, do you play with tutors, fast mana, or combos? Because I don't play with any of that stuff. And then we can go from there. I think those are pretty good. You might want to do one or the other. I like, personally, the just telling them I don't play Soul Ring, I don't play Demonic Tutor, and I don't play Karmic Guide Loops or whatever. That usually helps for me. Just make sure you're on the same page. No one's going to have a deck that's way better than the other people, because that affects sort of the social interaction. It'll affect the entire game.
Yeah, it's actually become the Rule 0 conversation now. It's taken on a whole new name. It's actually a reason that Rule 0 in itself becomes a little confusing, because it both means the rule that states in Commander that anything all 4 players agree to is legal to play for that game. And it also is this discussion pre-game to determine what power level and what we expect out of the game of Commander.
Let's all get the same equity out of this game. It's called the social contract, where when you're like deck building and considering playing with your deck, you have to figure out like what are the unwritten rules between my play group or people in general, where like generally players want to have the same amount of time spent during a game. We want some time equity, so taking 1,000 extra turns maybe isn't in the best interest of the whole table, even though it can win a game.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly like you said, taking 5 turns in a row will win a lot of games. In fact, it's going to be tough to lose by that. But it's going to take a long time to do, and it's not going to be fun for the other players who have to sit there for the 5 to 10 minute turn you take just to kill them.
Same is true for like casting Armageddon on turn 6. It's like that's not everybody's cup of tea. In fact, it's like 90% not people's cups of tea. So you really don't see these cards like ever, and it's the reason some of the cards like Expropriate aren't even that expensive.
Yes, you will hear the term Rule Zeroed out of the format, and what that essentially means is something like Armageddon, for example, something like Winter Orb. There's lots of cards like this that won't see a lot of play in Commander due to the fact that they simply aren't fun under most people's definitions of fun.
Yeah, Armageddon and Expropriate, probably both in the top 100 blue cards ever made or top 100 white cards ever made, and you're going to hear almost no one talk about them.
Yeah. Okay, so next, Commandment 2, build for fun. And this is becoming, I'm just going to put a comma here because we're going to get to it in a second. It goes with commandment number 3, which is play to win.
Spoiler, yeah.
It built for fun, play to win has become almost a tagline of this channel recently, and I really, really like it. I really just stick with it. So let's start with build for fun. What does this mean? Well, for starters, build whatever deck you want. Build what is fun to you. Include the wacky cards. Include your favorite cards. Include whatever you want as long as you are considering what is also fun for your play group.
Yeah, we have that already. We have the foundation of like, make sure Rule Zero is good, social contract, etc., what we just mentioned. And now that you're building a deck with that in mind, literally just put whatever you want in the deck.
Yes, exactly. As long as you take into consideration what is fun for both you as the player wants to play, whatever wacky fun commander you want to play. It can even be something super popular. You can want to build a track set.
That's okay.
And that's okay. It's cool that you want to build a track set. Take it in whatever direction you want. It's even fine because when you build for fun, if it's fun to you to go onto EDHREC and take the top 100 most played cards and just play that deck, that is fine too. You can just play whatever you find fun. Build the deck in a fun way, but also consider your opponent's fun. It is just as important that you have fun as each player at the table to have fun.
Right. You don't have to build the spikiest, most efficient thing in the whole wide world. It's okay. We'll get to the second half of this later, but I think you get to have a lot of fun and have a lot of freedom in your deck building. One thing that I will say is friendly reminder that keeping a reasonable mana curve is going to help you balance out having all this fun and actually playing the game, because you can put every fun card that costs 7 in your deck and play no magic when you go to sit down.
It's extremely true, yeah. If you just build a deck that is unbalanced, unfocused, and doesn't know what it's doing whatsoever, you're going to end up in this weird spot where you're just like, oh, I guess I have all these spells, but I don't get to play. And if you're not playing Magic, you're not going to have fun.
And if you're thinking like, well, what's a good way to make sure that I don't, screw up and accidentally play all my 7 drops and nothing else, I would probably say Moxfield.com. It's a deck building website you can go to for free, mind you. It's not a commandment or a commanderment, but it's a subsection. It's like, hey, probably do this because it's going to help you out. It's going to help you see all the numbers, how many lands are in your opening hand on average? What's your average mana value? What does a card cost? What about when you factor lands? What about when you don't? What about if you want to just click and after you build this deck, buy the entire thing on TCG Player? Well, you can.
Yeah, it is so helpful. Buying the deck on TCG Player or on Card Kingdom if you really like to, you just go there. You build the whole entire deck. It'll tell you what it costs on that website. So when you click on that link, you're going to pay a little more because there's going to be shipping. There's going to be, a little bit more of the price. But you're going to pay essentially what it told you on Moxfield.com. That's one of my favorite features. Honestly, the pricing feature that it automatically happens on Moxfield is amazing. It's perfect for building your budget list.
I don't think I could build budget decks without Moxfield. I'm actually being serious. I try to stick to a $50 budget, and I want to make sure I'm using the cheapest card every time. Update to the cheapest option in the deck because you could build the deck for that cheap, but I won't even know that on any other site because they can't tell me.
Do you know how much of a pain in the butt it is to build a whole deck? We used to do this, so we know. Build a whole deck, price it out, and then go, okay, now what do we cut? And then put it back and go back and forth. It's such a pain in the butt. Don't bother. Moxfield.com will do it all for you.
Commandment number 3, play to win. We just talked about it. Not the channel, the commandment. They're going to have to compete with this one now because they're in for some real trouble. Everyone's searching play to win, hoping for the commandment, not the channel. Sorry, Cam and Dylan. Make plays that benefit you most.
Damn.
Damn, that's our couple name.
Damn.
That's our couple name. Make plays that benefit you most of the time. That's what we're talking about. Play to win is, I've built my deck. Whatever my deck contains, that's great. I'm playing thematic, I'm playing janky, I'm playing spiky. Now that you're sitting down, I think it is definitely in your best interest to actually play to win. 90% of the time, we're talking make plays that benefit you either politically or directly in the game. I think games get real muddy real quick when you no longer sort of have to win or when you no longer are even trying to win. I think whatever the goal of the game is needs to be agreed when you sit down. So if you're saying like, hey, let's put some TV on in the background, let's screw around and just happen to be playing Commander. That's cool. We all agreed on that. But if everyone sits down as a default, I would say that everyone's assuming we're all trying to win the game, because what else is there to do? I don't know. That's like the default of a game, is to try to win. There's nothing spiky about trying to win a casual game of Magic. That's the core motivator of Magic the Gathering, is to reduce your opponent's life totals to 0. So let's do that.
Yeah, it's the purpose of the game. That is Magic the Gathering within itself. When you sit down, your goal is to win because you want to reduce other players to 0. So I think a great rule is on average, this is not a hard, fast rule. If you make 10 plays, at least 9 of them should be for your benefit. Now, there's plenty of examples where you would do things that are not going to be to your benefit, especially because this is a fun format, so you're going to do fun, wacky things. You're going to cast Peer's Whim, for example, this card that says pick friend or foe, and the best thing to always pick is friend yourself, foe, foe, foe. But that's not always fun. What if player B, to my left, is struggling? They've missed 3 land drops in a row, and they're just super behind. I'll gladly give that player a land.
But even then, like we're not talking about that. We're not talking about min-maxing everything. Like if you give them a land, you're an idiot, and that's not playing to win. It's like, okay, whoa. We're just talking about the end goal should be, I'm going to try to win this game, not like I'm going to try to make the most 100% spiky decision at every possible time. As long as you're trying to win, that's good. If you have Aetherflux Reservoir and you're at 6 million life and you don't shoot me for 50, I think you missed this commandment, and you are like, I don't understand, and I don't want to play in that game.
I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head when you said it's not about making the spikiest plays, it's about simply having a goal of winning the game, because you don't have to try your very hardest. I often like to play fast and loose when I play.
This is not a high-pressure environment.
Exactly. I like to make my plays fast. I just make my plays, do it out, and if I have something, I'll be way ahead, and I'll have 15 mana, I'll make the plays quickly that I think are the best. If I had sat there for a minute or two and thought about it, it wouldn't have been. I'm still trying to win. My goal is still to win. I'm just not going to sit here and eke out every inch of value. That's not necessary.
No, and it really messes with the balance and the intent of every game. If you were to just randomly come in and say secretly, without saying this, my goal is to have Joe win this game. Well, that's really going to mess with the social contract of everybody else. And maybe they don't want to play that game. And maybe if I said that out loud, we could have a discussion and make that not the case, because nobody else wants that.
And really, to beat home the point that you don't have to be optimal, you can even make plays that make you lose in the end of the game and still ultimately overall have been playing to win. I've done it to myself. I just think it's fun sometimes to do, because I've gotten to the point where in a game it's late game and I've got 60 cards and it's but I have CK Restoration. I could draw 60 more and just lose, and it'd be funny.
Yeah, I think we have different stances on that, but it's more of a gray area than just straight up not Aetherfluxing me out of the game. We can just play another game and then have fun in that game, versus me just being stuck under this umbrella of I can never win. I guess they're going to play with their food for a half hour.
Yeah, coming into the game to win originally is what I think the ultimate goal is. And like we said, there is a gray area, because it's ultimately you can make silly fun plays that ultimately lose you the game. That is allowed, and that's not even inherently bad.
Number 4 is a commandment I like very much. It's don't be salty. I don't know when those tablets were written, but salty is a pretty recent word.
Yeah, we found the tablets. They looked pretty dirty and old.
Dusty.
They were dusty, but apparently they were written pretty recently.
Well, actually, the ones that we smashed were dusty.
The new ones.
Then we found the new ones, and they were
also dusty.
Also dusty.
So you have a 25% chance of winning any given Commander game based on if you come into a game with everyone having equal decks and equal skill level. Yeah, that's the win percentage of Commander player on average is 25%. It cannot be higher. That's just how averages work.
If everything's even, yes.
It's 25%. So where we end up here is you're going Commander. I like saying this. I think it's silly, and it's not mean-spirited. It's just a silly thing to say. Commander players are losers. On average, you lose the game, and that's fine. It's okay to just lose, and it's going to happen way more often than not.
Better become acquainted with it and gracious in losing, and even just brush it off like it doesn't matter at all, because the main goal of the format is fun. I understand if you lose 5 in a row, it starts to maybe sting a little bit, or you think you're doing something wrong. But really, if you lose 8 games in a row, that's really not that far off of the average. It's okay. Losing happens. But the main thing is, like, I mean, you could still feel the stinging feeling like, damn, crap, I wish I would have won that game. But let's not take it out on other people. That's where the salty comes in. Like, take a second, collect yourself. It's all cool if you just have this quick little, like, internal discussion of like, man, I'm not happy. I'll figure out what I want to do when I get home. Like, for now, maybe I just won't play this deck again today. But if you just start complaining and yelling at other people, like, obviously you've crossed the line.
Exactly. Your feelings are legitimate, right? Like, if you play a game of Commander, there are going to be times when you leave the game feeling unsatisfied, unhappy, even salty. Now, the difference is feeling salty and having it with feeling bad and salty within yourself is a fine feeling. Taking it out, expressing it in a toxic manner is when it becomes extremely problematic. It is, again, everyone's feelings are legitimate, and getting upset over a game is okay. It happens to everyone. Everybody at some point will get upset at a game of Commander. If you don't, you're some kind of robot who just or you're very, very good at controlling emotions, but that is not most humans. Most humans can't control their emotions like that. So, except that some Commander games you'll get upset. The goal isn't to not get upset. The goal is to control your emotions and use them in a positive way. It's like, I think the best thing to do here is, hey, what made me upset about that game? And this has come up in our play group a bunch. And sometimes I've handled it poorly. I'm not going to act like I'm some like saint who like every time something goes bad, I'm like, actually, BC, I think I didn't have fun because of that card.
Well, you have to be dead to be a saint.
Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
You have to be super dead.
I don't. Everybody tell us, do you have to be dead to be a saint? I actually don't.
Only one can win this argument. This is binary. This is yes or no.
This seems binary, but maybe there's living saints and dead saints, and then I still win.
Who's to say?
Well, if there's two, if both.
There's one living saint, I'll say you win.
So the best thing you can do is, let's just say BZ plays Hushbringer, and it's frustrating because like my deck is heavy on ETBs.
Let's just pull that example out of thin air. It could be totally hypothetical. Could have happened a week ago.
Yeah, it could have happened a week ago. It could be completely hypothetical. BZ plays Hushbringer, and it makes me upset. I can be like, BZ, I think that you should cut that card from your deck. It seems to really shut down a lot of ways of playing and different archetypes. So it puts me in a situation where if you bring out that deck, now I'm forced to play a deck that can interact with it in a meaningful way, whereas some of my decks just can't, and it forces this weird awkward situation. That would be the best way to express myself. Now I've told BZ why I don't like the card and why I don't think it's fun, and now we can go forward, and either he probably won't bring that deck out against me, or he'll take it out of his deck.
Yeah, I have options too, and it's like, well, if you're going to play with, let's say you're playing with one person, and they really don't enjoy the thing that you enjoy, you don't have to play it with them. I'm not going to take Hushbringer out. I'm just not going to play it against cherries. It's like, kind of works for everybody. You just make sure if we didn't talk about it, there's just all this resentment building up. That's weird. Don't do that.
Commandment number 5, play interaction. And I know counterspell, spot removals, board wipes, and all of that kind of stuff don't sound the most fun at times.
It's eating your vegetables.
Yeah, it is eating your vegetable, removing stuff from the board. But I want to be so clear. Without the counterspells, the spot removal, and the board wipes, Magic would suck.
Yeah, oh my God.
It would not be a game of interaction. It would be a game of goldfishing.
It'd be Yu-Gi-Oh!
Whoever goldfishes first and gets there wins. It doesn't matter what the other players even do at all, basically, because you can't interact with them. So, counterspell, spot removal, and board wipes end up being the super inherent parts. So what's funny is what actually fits in here, and what is actually removed from the format is actually stacked pieces do the same kind of stuff, but they're kind of rule zeroed out because they tend not to be fun. These are the fun, playable ones, and even though they can be frustrating at times, of course, having your thing blown up will be frustrating. It's like, why'd you kill? Especially when you think the threat's something else.
Right.
It's going to be frustrating, but it's so necessary to make the game of Commander fun. Like, I can't even express enough how important it is to the game of Magic.
I mean, you just might as well roll dice at that point. If you don't play removal, or if, like, let's say, you're someone who says, I hate all removal and we're banning it from my playgroup. Well, then I can tell you what your playgroup is. It's whoever happens to have the best draw and get their commander out first and ramp up to 40 damage first, just straight up wins the game. Like, whoever draws Craterhoof first wins. Whoever draws Rise of the Dark Realms first wins, and there's no question about it. And they just stick an exclamation point on the game, and it's not, like, you can basically just swing past each other and pretend like nobody else exists.
I don't know. Rise of the Dark Realms sucks in the format with no removal.
Yeah, with no removal, that really sucks. It's a really bad one.
Yeah, so play some interaction. It is very important to the game, and it will make your games more fun, and it will cause fun interactions like politicking that you don't get usually.
Right, and I mean, let's be realistic here. You want to build a deck, you want to build a cool deck, and you want to do its thing. Do you want everyone to just let you do your thing? And you might as well goldfish. Like, do it by yourself. You'll still get the same result. No one's going to try to stop you. Or, with them too, it's like, they're going to do their thing. And not everybody can do their thing because everybody's thing is going to win them the game. So let's play multiple games. I'll do my thing at some point, but we have to stop other people from doing their thing to do our thing and go back to the one commandment, which is play to win.
Commandment number 6, know your game plan. Understand what you're going to do and how you're going to take it to a win. For example, tokens decks. Their strategy is to make a ton of tokens, go wide, and then overrun with some sort of effect to overrun their opponents and just kill them. And now I used overrun as in the term for the card, and then I use overrun as in to overtake.
Yes. They are trying to, in this example, you want to go wide first, then you want to pay off having a bunch of creatures with a giant pump spell, and then you want to attack and win the game. And every action you take in this is going to be leading you towards that goal. If you don't know that this is what your tokens deck wants to do, then you're just like have these overruns and you're like, when should I cast this? Should I cast this when I have 4 creatures? It's like, obviously not. If you know what tokens deck is doing, you want like 20. And it's like, well, should I remove that? It seems like it might prevent tokens from coming out. Or should I remove this because it's going to attack me for a bunch? But like tokens decks, for example, literally don't care about giant vanilla creatures. They're just going to chump them with one of their many tokens, make some more, and then overrun everybody. The threats you care about, so different depending on your deck. You have to know how you plan to win, how you get to that very specific victory goal.
Exactly. Another example of what matters to you, something like my Henzi deck. The most backbreaking cards in my Henzi deck are things that make creatures enter tap. Thalia, Heretic Cathar, Authority of the Councils, Blind Obedience. These cards are so backbreaking in my deck that I know there must answer effects every single time. Whereas most decks, they want these off the field, but they're not going to go out of the way to make sure these are dead. I have to make sure that these are dead because I know my game plan revolves 100% around giving creatures haste.
You basically can't win when they're in place. So because you know your game plan so well, you can understand that these threats go way up in the kill order, and you can help win games through it because you know what you're doing. It feels straightforward, but we'll get to later what we've seen in actual games. I think another way to do this is to try to avoid packing too many sub-themes into your deck so it's not confused or diluted. Having 7 game plans, which one do you want to go for? Which one do you know? Which one did you draw the most of? What if you drew like 4 cards for each one? You're just going to be floundering around that game. I think having like 1,000 sub-themes, not a good idea for your deck. You're going to have less fun and do less.
Yes, an unfocused deck will not know what it wants to do, so how can you know your deck's game plan if your deck doesn't know its own game plan?
Commandment number 7, since I haven't introduced one in a hot minute, is plan ahead. We're talking think about your next play. Basically at all times, just a general behind-the-scenes thought. Think about what you're going to do next and make sure you're just tuned into what's happening on the board. During other players' turns, I really think you are making a big mistake if you are not thinking about your next play at all.
By taking the time to think about your play during other players' turns, you're saving people time. They don't have to sit here and wait for you to make plays based. If you sit there with your hand down the whole time, they have to wait an extra 30, 40 seconds for you to look at your hand, read them, figure out what you want to do. You can decide that during other players' turns.
Yes, you can figure out what generally the best play is to make on this board state, the best attack, the best block. If they attack, what am I going to do? Like, you can get all this stuff. Don't reset your brain. Also, when you draw a new card, you can factor it in, incorporate it into what you were thinking about that entire time, and it's really not going to be like this deer in the headlight situation that I've seen a lot, where they draw their card and they go, well, let me start all over. It's like, whoa, hold on. What kind of card could it have possibly been? Sometimes it happens, but even then, knowing your game plan well enough will mean like, oh, I just drew this card, like, time to go this way. Like, I'm going to win the game now this way, or I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to tutor for this card. Just, please, I think it's just as bad to take a 10-minute turn as it is to overall waste 10 minutes by not just doing some simple thinking ahead or zoning out on other people's turns.
It really is about paying attention. You can't plan ahead if you're not paying attention. When it's not your turn, you turn your brain off and you look away and you just do nothing.
Or like text.
You're going to be completely confused when it comes back to your turn. It's like, what happened? It's like, it's completely different. The board was wiped. The board was wiped by the player to your left, and then 2 other players played cards. Obviously, you have no clue what the board looks like now if you weren't paying attention. If you do pay attention to the board state, you'll see what's going on, and you'll be ready on your turn to make plays. You'll have land ahead.
Yes. Number 8. The commandment number 8 is use your mulligans with an exclamation point. These are all exclamation points, by the way. So if you haven't been reading them internally with exclamation points, you are
You don't have to worry about that.
violating commandment number 11, which is read the exclamation points.
Well, you don't have to worry about that because it's actually at the bottom, and I put an exclamation point at the end.
Well, you still need to read it that way. Don't not read the exclamation in your head. In Commander, you get 1 free mulligan, which means you see an opening hand of 7. If you don't like it, put it back, shuffle up. Another second opening hand of 7. Now, if you don't like that, you're going to shuffle it up, put it back, and draw 6. Well, draw 7 and then put 1 back to end up with 6 total. But what I see a lot of is people just keeping hands that just kind of like do anything. They look functional without thinking about what it will be, or people are scared to mulligan, I think also.
Games of Commander last a long time. It is the most punishing format when you keep a bad hand and you don't get there. Because you have to sit there for an extra long time watching everything else happen around you. And it's going to happen sometimes. Now, don't get me wrong. You will keep really good hands, and you will still get punished. You'll keep a 3-lander with a piece of ramp, and then you'll still get stuck on lands for the rest of the game, and it'll still suck. That will happen.
We can mitigate that.
Yes, you can mitigate that by using your mulligans correctly to find the right hands that will work out more often than not.
Right. We're talking about, putting away that 5-lander with no card draw in it. That'll just end up inevitably with you sputtering out on turn 7, and then trying to get a little bit, you could say greedy, but we need to start the game. We need to get moving on turns 2 through 4. We need to be taking actions, getting close to our game plan. We can't just fart around. We got to have some ramp, maybe some card draw. Just make sure that whatever your game plan is, that you already know because you've learned your deck's game plan, whatever it is, you have actionable steps to take towards it. Like, oh, I can ramp, put this up. This will get me some card draw. This is going to start making tokens. And then, if I draw enough cards, I'll find an overrun.
Yes. Understanding your deck is so important. So many different decks are looking for so many different things in their opening hand. If your opening hand in the token stack has 0 ways to make tokens, I might suggest not keeping that. That's pretty terrible. I have an Umezawa deck that is a ninja deck. If I don't have a 1/1 unblockable for 1, or 1/1 with flying for 1, I'm not keeping that hand ever. The deck needs those just to function. Knowing what you need in your opening hand. Some decks are land decks. They want to go big. You need 2 to 3 pieces of ramp just in your opening hand. Maybe just 2. 3 is a lot. 2.
How about not 0?
You need at least 1 piece of ramp in your opening hand, guaranteed in your big go wide ramp deck.
Yeah, I think a good rule is if you can't jumpstart your game plan or hit your land drops with a hand, send it back and don't even feel bad about it. Like, in a certain sense, you're going to get screwed with mulligans a certain number of times where you don't see anything. But we're not talking about that. We're just talking about, let's give yourself the best chance. Every decision is thought of by itself. Like, this hand does not help me. It's not a good hand. And obviously your standards get a little bit lower whenever you mulligan. But people are, you can't just go take a freebie, see a mediocre hand, and then just go, I'll keep it because it's got 4 lands and like a removal spell. It's like, that might be terrible for you. And I think it depends on a little bit on your mulligan method. Some groups allow for like infinite mulligans. To me, that's real weird. And I think it's easy to take advantage even if you're not trying to, and the games get a little skewed. And also, you could just build like a really bad deck and still have it function with that rule. But we don't do that. But I think mulling to 6 is okay, especially if you operate under normal Commander rules. Don't be afraid to.
Number 9, keep resources flowing. Now, this means a couple of things. Play a lot of ramp in your deck is, for one. Lands are a resource. So every single land makes mana, and if you get extra lands into play or extra signets, talismans, all these cards into play, you will have extra resources. Having extra resources is the key to winning every single game of Commander. The player that has the most resources and uses them most efficiently, especially in your non-combo metas, is going to win the game.
Yep, you need lots of card draw, you need lots of ramp, and you need to make sure that these are baked into your deck, and they're some of the vegetables. It's like, when you're building, it's like it's not the most exciting thing to add divination into your deck, whatever form of divination you need to play. Don't play actual divination, but it's not the most exciting. But these are the cards that help you see more cards, make sure you don't miss your land drops, and enact your game plan. Whereas if you just cut all your card draw for fun cards that you like, your deck now sputters out and never gets any velocity in the entire game, and you will just stagnate. And as I'm playing my random Soul Shatters or Flashback Marauders, you just lose the one thing you did every turn.
It's actually very common, the card draw one. We have a friend who's not as entrenched in Commander as us. Like, obviously, we sit here and we talk about Commander every single day.
Doesn't get much more entrenched.
Yeah, and we build decks all the time. It's like, so obviously we can get there. We have a friend who isn't as entrenched, so they end up with decks that don't have enough card draw, and what happens to them is they end up they enact their game plan early, board wipe. Okay, then maybe they can rebuild once, and then another board wipe or something. It's like
then they eternally have 2 or less cards in their hand, and they will never win.
yeah, exactly. And they can't do anything, and that stinks.
Bums me out.
It is a bummer. It's why card draw is so important. You need to be able to continue having resources for the whole game, whether it goes long or short. Now, is that going to happen every game? No, because you're not going to draw your card draw some games, and you're going to end up in games where you do run out of resources. That does happen. But again, like we mentioned before, we're looking to mitigate that. We're looking to have enough card draw in so that we're not running into these situations often. Will they come up? Yes. How often? That's what we can control.
Then we can make it as low as possible while still there being some outliers that we can never control.
Yeah, there's always going to be outliers.
Number 10 is secretly one of the hardest, and I think a lot of people might need some help on this one, but I'll explain. Is know what your cards do. We're just talking about the cards in your deck, becoming familiar with your deck, and having a working knowledge of what all your cards do. It's not like you have to do all this homework and figure out every specific interaction with every card. I'm talking about just the basic words on the card. Be able to tell me when your card is on the battlefield, all of the words on it correctly, maybe from memory, or even just if you're not sure, give it a quick reread.
Yeah, exactly. You need a basic understanding of your deck. And now, obviously, this is for players who play more often. Because if you sit down and you borrow a deck, obviously, I expect you to read the cards and not understand
Please,
it. Yeah, there are situations where you will obviously not have to follow this commandment completely. But when you have a deck that you've built and you bring the games over and over and over again, you need to know approximately what your cards do. That's not to say that you need to know the exact wording, because guess what? It's in front of you. And when something comes up like, hey, how does this interact with this? You can read the cards and try and figure it out. And just knowing the basics. Let me be very clear. If you play something like Opalescence with Humility, you better know that interaction because nobody else knows that interaction.
One of the classic.
If you brought those two, the most confusing interaction in all of Magic to the table, you better know how it works.
Yeah, and Humility as a bonus is miserable. Possibly violating the Rule 0 conversation.
Often will. That card is one of my least favorite cards in Magic. Though I love its art, I think it's super silly. I will never put it in a deck.
But the reason we bring this up is because I think this is the most violated commandment that I have ever seen in a game where, like, it's just people, they have their decks in front of them and they're starting to do things and they just, I don't know if it's like they kind of read a card wrong on accident or they just haven't, figured out what it does from memory and they didn't read the card and they just are taking incorrect actions. Like, it's just not a legal thing you can do. And I point it out all the time because obviously I'm just trying to play by the rules here. And it's not like I'm making fun of you or anything, but it is really important. It will make games go much more smoothly. There won't be any confusion of people who have different ideas of what the card does or like looking up judge rulings because you haven't done this before. If you just get that working knowledge, maybe do a little bit of homework. It's worth it. You want to take correct actions also. Nobody wants to like accidentally do the wrong thing. You might as well just make up your own cards at that point. Like, just gotta have an understanding of what your cards do. That's a commandment.
Yeah, everyone should know what their own cards do. Again, you don't have to know anyone else's. Now,
I think this is pretty fair, but it is a thing that will bog down games if you don't do it.
It's like, and again, just to reiterate, it is your cards.
The words on your cards, not even interactions, just the words.
You don't need to know what your opponent's cards do. You don't need to sit down and know what every card does in Magic. Just what your deck, whatever 99, whatever 100 cards you've brought to the table, know what they do in a basic way. And this isn't...
I guess like we're talking like when you extort, I want you to make us lose 1, and then I want you to gain 3. Like that kind of like just the numbers on Lightning Bolt. We're dealing 3 damage, we're tapping 1 red. If your card has affinity, tapping the right amount of mana for it when you reduce the cost. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's literally... I want to reiterate, it's the basics. I don't need you to know the very details of like if there's 2 replacement effects. I don't need you to know how 2 opposition agents interact. That's whatever.
Who cares?
Can figure that. We can figure that out when that comes up. I just want you to know that when you have opposition agent on the field, you get to control me. Do you get to look at my hand? I never remember this one. I think the answer is yes. You do get to look at their hand, but I break my own rule with that card because I can never remember that rule. Do you know, BZ?
I don't remember. We can look it up now just to help so everybody knows.
I actually just learned 2 interactions in that little blurb I just read.
Because we followed our own rule and we didn't know, so we looked it up.
Yes. Opposition agent, when you control them during searching, you can look at their hand. But, this is the part I didn't know, you can't reveal that information to the players. Meaning you can't show that hand to other players. Meaning that when you look at a player's hand at any point, you cannot reveal that information to other players. You can tell them. you can't show them.
You can't flip over Thoughtseize and say they have Thoughtseize, but I can say verbally
They have thoughts.
they have Thoughtseize.
Yes, which is cool and interesting. It's always good to look up things you're not sure about, like how stupid opposition change works. I'm still not looking up how to work on 2. I think it's timestamps.
I think it involves timestamps.
Yeah, it involves timestamps. Timestamps are dumb.
Go ahead and then flicker them and have them all enter at the same time, and then we can do priority timestamps.
Yes.
Or active player timestamps.
These are the commandments, but these are 2 things every commander deck needs. Peace out, Tribe Scouts.